Hello, my name is Jacob Hooper, and this is my engineering project pitch video. Leonardo da Vinci is a man hundreds of years ahead of his time. He is known for his great works of art, and also for some really cool inventions that he created. He recorded a lot of these in a book called the Codex Arundel, and one of these inventions is something called the Ornithopter. It's an early hang glider. Among other inventions included an early helicopter, some machines that tested coil strength, things like that. What I'd like to do is take a look at the Ornithopter. A couple goals for my project. That includes creating a working Ornithopter in the Da Vinci style. What in the Da Vinci style means is it doesn't have to be exactly what he wrote down in the Codex Arundel, because we're not 100% sure that would work. For instance, we know his helicopter wouldn't actually work because the bottom is not fixed to anything. There's no back rotor, things like that. So there's, of course, going to be small problems with the notebook that he created because, sadly, Da Vinci never actually built any of his inventions. He only thought them up and recorded them. And so what I'm going to have to do is make one of his inventions work and still have it look like one of his inventions, and not look like a modern hang glider. Additionally, I'm really interested in flight and the way flight works, the physics of it, and basically how people create things that can fly. And so I'd like to just find a deeper understanding of aerodynamics and flight. Basically, two goals: create the Ornithopter, and second, learn a little bit more about flight. You're going to need a couple materials for this. That includes canvas, which costs between $10 and $15 for very large sheets, things that could cover 3 ornithopters. So it's not really going to be an issue at all in terms of cost there. Additionally, I also need to look at wood or a wood stand-in such as aluminum for the frame of the Ornithopter. This also is going to cost not too much. It can be like $5 for 10-foot 2x4s, things like that. Where I do need to worry is in what type of wood I'm using, because some types of wood, like lighter woods and heavier woods, are more expensive than others. I'm probably going to be wanting to look at a lighter wood. I just have to be careful to make sure that that is strong enough. I also need to look at a human stand-in, things for my prototypes, small dummies, stuff like that, that is relatively close to the proportions of the human body. That's probably going to be a little more expensive. I may end up building that myself. I might actually end up measuring various proportions on humans and finding a material that relatively matches how weighty, say, limbs are, head is, and just building a tiny little person. I actually don't think that would be that difficult, but time will tell. Steps. The first step is actually going to be research. I like to get my hands on the Codex Arundel, which shouldn't be difficult. I mean, not the actual Codex Arundel, a copy. The University of Minnesota, I know, has a copy, as well as it's an app on an iPhone, both the original version and a transcribed version in English. So that shouldn't be no problem at all. I just have to make sure I get a version that has the entirety of the section on the Ornithopter, which might be a little bit more difficult, but shouldn't be any true problem. Another stage of this research is going to be looking into hang gliders, such as things like the dimensions that they are, the ratios of wingspan to front to end, things like that, making sure that I have a general direction of where I'm going with my Ornithopter before I start building it, because I don't want to be building things 100% in the blind. I've also looked a little bit into how they actually work, how they're steered, and that's things like you hold onto the bar and you basically shift your weight forward in order to point the tip down to do dives. You shift your weight back to pull up, shift your weight to the left to turn left. It's all very simple mechanics there. And so when constructing the Ornithopter, I just need to keep all that in mind. Final thing I need to do is research into the actual materials that I'm going to be using. I mentioned earlier that I need to worry about what type of wood I'm using. So I need to actually figure out what type of wood I'm using. I also need to look at if canvas is going to be acceptable, if I need to find a different type of fabric. I think canvas will be fine. And so things like that. And just making sure that that's all cost effective. Oh, by the way, the first step shouldn't take too long, just the very first section of the semester. I need to make sure I don't spend too much time on that. That's because the second step is prototyping. Prototyping is going to take the majority of the semester. This involves building a lot of really little versions of the Ornithopter that are going to try out different ratios, different materials, things like that to see what works the best. I'm going to be using a wind tunnel to make sure that my materials are producing enough and my ratios are producing enough lift to actually carry a human through the air for a respectable amount of time, as well as making sure that the parts don't actually fall apart in the wind, because nobody wants their hang glider to break while they're riding it. So that's just something I gotta keep in mind. I'm also going to be I can also, in that wind tunnel, say shift the dummies around on my prototypes. For instance, if I want to make sure that diving on the prototype works, I can push the dummy forward to make the nose tilt down. And that's just the beauty of how simple hang gliders are. It should be very easy to test without an actual human in it controlling it, because it all works just based on where the weight is in relation to the center of the hang glider. Finally, I will be able to make a full-size Ornithopter. This probably won't fit in the wind tunnel, so I don't know how much testing I'll be able to actually get on this, because it's not really safe to put a human inside my own Ornithopter. I don't know how comfortable I'd be with that. But using whatever prototype seems to work best in the wind tunnel, and that's going to be measured off of material strength, off of lift given, things like that. I'm going to take whatever I think works the best. I doubt any of it will work perfectly, but whatever works the best, produces the most lift, things like that. I'm going to build a full-size model that hopefully matches it to scale perfectly, has the same ratio of wingspans, the same weight in each area, all of that stuff. And I don't think that'll be particularly difficult. And I'll just make sure that a human can actually fit inside of it. That is pretty much the extent of my full-scale section. Testing, again, I'd like to use a wind tunnel to measure things like lift. Nothing too complicated there. I was criticized for before saying either it flies or it doesn't. So, like I said, I just like to measure how well it flies, and that's, again, where the prototyping comes in. That's pretty much my whole project, and I'd like to thank you for listening to my video. And, again, this has been Jacob Hooper with the Ornithopter. Thank you very much.